Welcome back to the LandCo podcast. We're back at it with another property review. This time we're chatting about 154 acres for sale in Fulton County. And if you've been with us a while, you kind of remember this format of these property reviews. They're a little different now. What we used to do was we'd chat about the property, talk about everything it had to offer, kind of our thoughts on it, who'd be a good fit for it. And then we would move into the value, kind of like what we thought the value should be placed at in relationship to what it was priced at. And we ran into a little resistance from local brokers on that second part of that. So, which, internally we fought that a little bit because, honestly, that's not entirely our problem. Like, our commitment is to bringing value to our clients, but we work with these other brokers all the time. So we decided to kind of pull the plug on that and kind of regroup. And so here we are, we're doing them again. The format's the same except for the second part. So what we're gonna do here is chat about this property. I'll tell you what I think about it, all the features it has, and who we think would be a good fit for the property. We still have done the valuations internally. I'm just not going to chat about that publicly with everybody. So if you're looking for a property or want to know more about this in terms of like what we think the value is, you'll just have to get in touch with us personally. We may end up doing some podcasts that are only available to our exclusive clients, but for now, we're just going to leave that off. And if you want to know where we think the value of this property is, just get in touch any way you want, text, call, email, anything, and we'll chat through it with you. So let's dive in. The property, I know it pretty decently. I've been on it several times. It is 154 acres just east of Canton. So, excuse me, if you're familiar with the area in Fulton County, if you're coming up, Route 9 from Banner, it's going to be on the south side pretty much as soon as you get up to the top of the hill. So it is directly north of Soco Lake. So that's the location. So let's dive in here. I have it pulled up on my iPad, so let me draw in the lines here. So these property lines, well, this is going to be a little tricky. How do I get back? Okay, obviously these are just appropriate. And if you're just listening to this on like Apple Podcast, which is fine, it'll make sense. Some of these images we're talking about, if you want to kind of like follow along even better or want more detailed information, hop onto our website, landco.com, and we're going through kind of images as we do these. So this is about the property lines, this yellow line that I drew in. And so as you can see, it's mostly tillable in water, which is a cool property. I mean, it is not a deer hunting property, and I'd be shocked if there was a deer on there. But so this property is going to suit someone that's looking for fishing, waterfowl, and wants some income on the property, which is, I love properties like that. They're great. The only downside, I'm going to start with the negatives on this property because really there's not a ton. Right down the middle here is those high lines. So there is some high lines going through the property, which on smaller properties, I think is probably more of an issue because the geese, the waterfowl don't like them. Luckily, here, it's big enough that like either side, there's plenty of room for them to land on. So it is a drawback in our mind. But if you buy the whole property or a big enough chunk of this, then it's not, at least in our mind, it's not a huge deal. Visually, if you just don't like the way they look, which is totally some people, I get it. I would just move on from this property because they go right through the middle of it. But in terms of hunting, it affects it a little bit, but it's big enough that you're going to have your opportunities to shoot ducks and geese here. So that is the drawback. Going through some of the cool things of this property. So they say it's 90, again, I should have said this. This is listed by Don Wagner with Land Guys. I know Don well. Most of the stuff I assume is true or as accurate as he can get. So he has it at 90 acres tillable, but he also has on there that you could farm up to another 25 additional acres with a little work. I think that work probably entails a little grading of the property to get ruts out and then probably some disking and you're home free. That's probably accurate. I remember, so this property is part of the old Soco ground. It was auctioned off. I lose track of time, probably 10, 12 years ago. But immediately after that owner had it, he put it into tillable, and I think it was for sale back then for a while. And I want to say they advertised it as like 120 acres tillable. So I think that number is probably fairly accurate with just a little work. So, you know, you're talking 115, you know, over 2/3 tillable, which if you're looking for a property that'll float itself, or at least, you know, provide some good income to help pay for the property, this is certainly it. The entrance or the access is good, and like, I think kind of cool because your entrance, you know, it has road frontage on Route 9. You're probably not going to come in off 9. There's a huge ditch in this area on the north side, so it's doable. I don't know why you would in this circumstance, because you can just head south on Cemetery Road, and there is more traffic back there than I would have expected. We just developed this property on the other side of the road here, so I've been back there quite a bit, but it's a dead-end road right into Hitchcock's property, so the only people back there or the only people that should be back there are, you know, both sides of the road here, the people going to the cemetery here, and people going back to Hitchcock's property. So there is some people going back there to kind of snoop around more than you would like, but the traffic is pretty minimal. The road's good, so access is good. You can get into the property, I think a few spots, one here, one down in the middle, and then I believe you can get into it from the south side as well. So access is good. These lakes, they're cool. I mean, they're your standard strip mine lakes. They're not the high bank lakes. So there's not that there's anything good or bad about either, but they're not the strip mine lakes that are like, you know, straight down, like if it'd be a goat to walk down there. They're good looking lakes. I believe they connected these two. I believe they put a culvert in so you could drive over it. So you could put a little fish guard in there to keep, if you wanted different fish in both lakes, you know, you could certainly do that. This one back here, I believe is a little shallower, but I'm not positive. But there's plenty of fishing out there if you want fishing. I mean, you're not going to be short on fishing. I always think it's kind of cool. You know, having one big lake is certainly awesome, but having two or three has its advantages because you can kind of stock different things in different lakes. So it gives you the opportunity to fish for different species. I know you can do that in one lake, but it seems to be a little easier when you have multiple bodies of water. So fishing is going to be good. I don't know what's in there. From my experience, all these lakes out here are fairly similar, which means they're going to be bass, crappie, bluegill. You know, people will tell you that there's muskie in there, but like I think that was 20 years ago, and there's probably not unless they stock them specifically. They're probably a little overpopulated with bass because that's just what happens out here. But all that is good news. I'm not saying that in like a negative light. That is good. That's a good spot to start, and you can kind of take that in any direction. So the fishing out there, I'm sure, is good. In terms of waterfowl, if you back out and look at this other image I have, you know, the location is here. It's a bad color. Hold on. This property is right here. Okay. So you see, you're only, you know, I don't know what that is, 5-6 miles from the river. You're only a mile or so from the north side of Soco Lake, and, you know, 6 or 8 miles from the south side of that cooling lake. That's, you know, it's not a cooling lake anymore, but the big part of that lake that stays open. I mean, it's shut down, but that lake is still, you know, who knows? You hear all sorts of numbers, but by all accounts, it's 150 feet plus deep. So like, that's going to stay open most of the waterfowl season, if not all of it, you know, regardless, every year. So location is good. You also get all these, you know, strip mine lakes there down into here. Hold all those birds. We have developed stuff in this area with a lot of luck. So the location is really good. I say all that to say that like there's going to be birds in the area. Right now, it is only set up to hunt those birds, and like, I don't know if they have a field pit, but I know they have some pits on the lakes, which is great. I mean, there's power all along here, so you could tap into the power and run power and have an ice eater. There's no flooded food as it sits, and in our experience in this area, you need flooded food if you're going to want to consistently do good with the ducks. So It's doable though. Like I haven't been out there and surveyed exactly where that could go. You're sort of limited because of the power lines. Like you're going to want it to be on the far west or far east side of the property, which I'm sure there's spots. You know, so you're going to have to sink if you're wanting to buy it for, and you want the duck hunting specifically to be good, you're going to have to spend a few bucks to get a wetland in there with food. But again, all the things that you have to have in place to build those, they're there. Like you have water to pump out of, you have power close by, you have, you know, sloping, kind of gently sloping terrain. So I believe all the stuff is there needed to build those wetlands. I just haven't gone out and surveyed them to let, you know, to know exactly how big they'd be, how much they'd cost. But if you're interested in the property and want us to go check that out, we certainly can. So, but my instincts are saying you could certainly do that, and it would increase the, you know, waterfowl hunting on this place, you know, a ton. So that's it. Everything is there. I mean, you're sitting there at, let's just ballpark 100 acres tillable. I think they said $205 an acre cash rent, which is like probably a touch on the high side, but it's doable. So you're looking at somewhere in the 20 grand ballpark income. They're asking 920 grand. So, you know, at full asking price, you're over 2% return, which is pretty good. And trying to think if I missed anything. Again, we're not going to talk about value. If you want it, if you're curious about what we think about the value of it, just get in touch, you know, text, phone, email, any of that stuff. But one other thing to think about on this property is they will divide it. I've seen 2 or 3 different maps. My guess is that as long as it makes sense to like sell the rest of it, like it doesn't hurt the rest of the value of the rest of the property, then they're open to that. So, you know, if this is 154, if you want 80 or 100, then certainly give this property a little attention, because they're open to those ideas on how to split the property. So there's lakes on both sides, so you could get a lake on either side of the property. So there's a bunch of options when it comes to dividing it. So that is it for this property. If you have any specific questions, let us know. And we appreciate you guys listening. And I know there's a few extra properties that hit the market soon, and we have a few more coming up shortly. So we'll do some more of these property reviews as soon as we can. So thanks for listening.